What's up, guys? This is TheKephas. Overwatch. What can I say about it, man? Like, for real, it's one of my favorite games of all time. I legit love this game. Say what you want about it, you can talk all the smack you want, but for me, it is one of the most important games I've ever played. But more on that later. Because in order to help you understand why Overwatch is so important to me, please allow me a few moments to explain a couple of things about myself. You see, for as long as I can remember, I have been a massive video game nerd. I seriously can't remember a time when I wasn't playing video games. I literally chronicle moments in my life based around what video game I was playing at that time. Make fun of me all you want, but I'm a gamer and I'm proud of it. Gosh dang it. Something else that you probably need to know about me, even longer than I've been playing video games, for as long as I've been alive in fact, I am severely visually handicapped. I'm what the professionals refer to as being legally blind. Being legally blind doesn't necessarily mean that you're totally blind. It just means that your vision is at or worse than 20/200. In my case, I am completely blind in my left eye and severely nearsighted in my right eye. And look, before you even think about asking how many fingers I'm holding up...
How many fingers am I holding up? 4? Close enough. How about me?
On top of that, my vision is slightly more blurry, and I have absolutely no peripheral vision whatsoever. But hey, look, it's all good. I've got this whole thing on lockdown. It's not even a big deal, so don't sweat it. I just like to think of it as living life on a harder difficulty. You know what I'm saying? If I were a games journalist, I would say that blindness is the dark souls of life. And then I'd proceed to show how inept I am at completing the most minute task. Life. 2 out of 10. Too much life. But the silver lining to this whole blindness thing is that it hasn't prevented me from living life to the fullest and playing all the video games. I mean, I grew up playing everything. Platformers, beat-em-ups, bullet hell, sports games, RPGs, and even those weird learning company games on DOS. Hey, don't laugh. I loved those games as a kid. Gizmos and Gadgets was lit. But then one day I was introduced to a new type of game. It was like nothing I had ever seen before. Mostly because I had never heard of games like Doom or Quake. But it was on that day that I would be awakened to the genre that would be known as the first-person shooter. GoldenEye was awesome. Not only was it the first FPS game I had ever played, it was also the first 3D game I had ever played, even before Super Mario 64. You see, back in those days, I had never really encountered a game where my vision made it harder for me to play, aside from maybe a few games where having to read small text became an issue. For the most part, I never really had any trouble with any game, and believe it or not, GoldenEye was no exception. I was a natural. I 100%ed the game on the hardest difficulty, and among my friends, I was the person to beat in multiplayer, even when we played on License to Kill. More often than not, I would come out the victor. Turns out, my vision might suck, but my reflexes don't. But when you look at how GoldenEye is designed, it makes sense as to why the game doesn't give me any trouble. For one, the game has auto-aim, which of course makes things a lot easier. For two, the game has fairly cartoony graphics, which makes enemies very easy to see. And for the most part, the levels are fairly linear. The only levels I really had trouble with were Surface 1 and Surface 2, which were a lot more open. And all of this plays a lot into why future games in this genre gave me a lot more trouble. A fact that would be felt immediately with my second FPS game. I was captivated by Halo. It's still one of my favorite IPs, and I've participated in every single game. But everything about GoldenEye that made it easy for me to play is gone in Halo. The improved graphics made enemies much more difficult to see. The levels were massive and way more complex compared to GoldenEye. The pace of the game was much quicker, and the lack of auto-aim required much more skill from the player. All of these things, I feel, make Halo a much superior first-person shooter over GoldenEye, but they also, unfortunately for me, made the game much more difficult for me to play as a person with a visual disability. And so for the first time, I was finding it very difficult to compete with my friends in multiplayer. And this became even more the case when Call of Duty became the shooter that everyone was playing. Look man, I gave it my all. I gave it the old college try, but good God, look at my KD here.
How embarrassing.
The game was so fast, levels were massive and more complex, enemies were coming from every which way and harder to see, I just couldn't keep up. It was a hard pill to swallow, but even though these games were fun, I just couldn't realistically compete. And I had to accept that maybe FPS games just weren't for me. Oh hey look, a new game! Alright, look, I know what you're thinking. We're like 6 minutes into this video that's supposed to be about Overwatch, and we haven't even really started talking about Overwatch yet, but I hope that you'll pardon my long-windedness, because I really wanted to help you appreciate just why Overwatch is so special to me. But I had spent almost 2 decades feeling like an entire genre had passed me by. A genre that I could never truly enjoy like so many of my friends were. So much so that by the time Overwatch came out, I just kind of shrugged it off, kind of rolled my eyes a bit. But you have to understand where my mind was at the time. I happened to enjoy Blizzard games quite a lot, especially World of Warcraft. And I had been hearing about this amazing new next-gen MMORPG that Blizzard was working on called Titan. But after years of hype, it turned out that Titan was never meant to be. And what was once going to be this amazing MMORPG was reduced to a first-person shooter. At least that's how I saw it at the time. To be honest, I was a little bit butthurt. I might have even resented the game a little bit. I mean, there I was, listening to my friends go crazy, having so much fun with this awesome new FPS game, and I just knew I could never enjoy it like they were. So I tried to ignore the game as much as possible, but I just couldn't resist the game's charm. I mean, have you seen those cinematics? Every single one of them is like watching the end of Terminator 2. Gets me every time, man. Look, I might be blind, but even I could see that there was something special about Overwatch. So I got over myself and decided to give Overwatch a try, and I have not looked back ever since. For the first time since GoldenEye, I was playing an FPS game and I wasn't getting completely obliterated. In fact, I was doing okay. The feeling of getting a play of the game, being awarded medals, having the game show me that I could play this one, it was somewhat cathartic. Overwatch was able to achieve, for me, something that no other FPS could achieve in nearly 20 years. Accessibility. And Overwatch doesn't go out of its way to accomplish this. It's simply the result of many different aspects that make up what the game is. Like GoldenEye, the game is more vibrant and cartoony, making things much easier to see by default. Characters pop out more, and even have colored outlines around them, making them even easier to see. But it goes even further than cartoony graphics. You see, Fortnite is another cartoony shooter that I enjoy, but I have a lot harder time seeing in that game. The main distinction between these two games in this case would boil down to map design. You see, Fortnite has a very large and open map. Enemies can come at you from anywhere, from miles away, and they can be very hard to see. Overwatch has much smaller maps, but it's even more than that. In Overwatch, both teams come from separate ends of the map, which means that enemies are pretty much always coming from the same direction. Well, you know, except for those flanking McCrees that seem like their only purpose in life is getting play of the game. Yeah, congratulations, dude. You got play of the game, but you didn't win your match, did you? You jerk. Sorry. Little pin-up aggression there. So it's obvious that if you have a game that makes things easy to see, it's going to be great for someone who has a hard time seeing. But as someone who has spent my entire life not being able to see very well, I have learned to make the most out of my other senses, most notably my hearing. Yeah, I like to refer to this superpower as my blind boy ears. And let me tell you, Overwatch capitalizes on my blind boy ears. Every aspect of the sound design in this game significantly contributes my experience with it. The sound team for Overwatch should be commended because the best way I can explain it is that whenever I hear footsteps nearby, I not only know that someone is coming for me, I can determine specifically who it is solely based on their footsteps. Whether it's McCree's jingling boots, Widowmaker's high heels, or Junkrat's clunky stump, every single footstep from every character sounds different from one another. And can we talk about Doomfist for a second? Because I'm pretty sure that my 95-year-old grandma, even without her hearing aid, could tell when Doomfist is nearby. It's incredible just how distinct each character sounds from the other. And it's not just their footsteps, it's everything from the sounds of their guns and abilities, their voice lines, their deaths. I can almost always tell who I'll be going up against before the match even starts, just by listening to the sounds going on outside the spawn door. And the fact that voice lines are implemented in a way that allows me to detect when an ultimate is being used, and whether it's being used by someone on my team or the enemy team, just based on the voice line alone, is incredible and invaluable for me to be able to react accordingly. I'm sure that the quality of the sound design might be taken for granted by those who may not depend on it so much, but for me, it is likely the most important aspect of the game that contributes to my ability at being able to play it at a higher level. So every single aspect of how Overwatch is designed has made it the most accessible shooter that I've ever played. But at the end of the day, Overwatch is still a shooter. It requires a good amount of mechanical skill. You still have to be able to aim and react quickly. And because of this, even though I was playing it, I was still feeling pretty intimidated. And I felt like I could only go so far with the game. That is, until I discovered a character that didn't really require a whole lot of aiming. Junkrat for me was the great equalizer. For the first time ever in an online shooter, I felt like I could be the one dominating. And that's when the game really clicked for me, when I could consistently perform, causing so much destruction almost every single game I played. I just kept throwing bombs. I knew where the enemy was coming from, one after another. Boom, boom, boom. It felt so good to finally be the one that was causing the destruction, to finally be the one in someone else's kill cam, and on a consistent basis. Overwatch was everything I needed from a shooter, and everything I had been waiting for so long. But Overwatch is a game with many different characters, and while I really enjoy causing destruction with Junkrat, just playing that one character for months on end did start to feel kind of boring after a while. And Overwatch is a team game, so sometimes Junkrat isn't the hero that your team needs, but I felt limited. I felt like Junkrat was the only character that I could really play. I couldn't switch to that tank or healer that the team might have needed at the time, or perhaps a different DPS that would be more effective. But this was a limitation that I put on myself, and after a while, I just kinda stopped playing the game. For a long time actually, like a couple years. But one night out of the blue, I decided to hop into the game again, and when I did, I discovered a whole bunch of new characters that had been added to the game. One in particular caught my attention too. A certain cowgirl with a southern accent and a seeing eye robot for an ultimate. I just had to give her a try. I don't know though, she is a hit scan, so I've got to be able to aim. Maybe I shouldn't. Something clicked when I started playing Ashe. I can aim. I can play hit scans. And if I can play hit scans, then I can play anybody. I don't just have to stick to one character. I can actually play this game. All I had to do was try. The limitations that I put on myself were gone, and I finally started to try out all the other heroes. It went from Ashe to Brigitte, and oh boy do I love playing Brigitte. So Brigitte's a lot of fun. Maybe I should try out Reinhardt. Good call. And one by one, I continued to discover more and more heroes that I could play. And I've been playing the game consistently ever since, because I continue to discover and rediscover how much fun I can have with all kinds of different heroes. Overwatch helped me shatter my own limitations. And that's why it's one of the most important video games that I have ever played. And it's also why it's one of my favorites. I mean, yeah, my aim is far from the best, and my game sense has room for improvement. I mean, I've been bouncing between gold and platinum for a while now. But who cares, man? I've been having so much fun. I'm just happy to be able to play the game. I'm happy to be able to play all the roles and to be able to play so many different heroes. And I'm happy to not feel limited. I know I can improve, I can get better, and I can learn so much more about the game. I'm so thankful for Overwatch, and to make things even better, it got my wife into gaming. We've been playing Overwatch together almost every single night for the past year. And even though Overwatch can be frustrating at times, like really frustrating, I'm as happy as I've ever been with any game. And I expect that so much more fun will be had making new memories with Overwatch for many years to come. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by clicking that like button. And feel free to share it with your friends so they can enjoy it as well. And if you'd like to see more videos, you can subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to be notified as soon as new videos are posted. You can also follow me on Facebook, and if you'd like, you can support my work on Patreon. Links to all that stuff can be found in the description below. This is TheKephas. Until next time.